you ready?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Weeb Club. This is episode 28.
It's 28, right? Or 27. It's one of the two.
It is 20. I thought it was 26. Yeah, it's 27.
Okay. Yeah, I know 26 is out, but I didn't remember if there was a 27.
Yeah, so we are 27. Is there anything... nothing probably special about the number 27, so nothing cool there.
Yeah. Today we have a very great topic. The best topic we've ever had on the Weeb Club. Everybody get excited for a brand new episode of the weekly Weeb Club. Today we're going to talk about loanwords.
Comments first.
Okay.
Although we could start giving a little tease to what we talk about post comments. But before we give any teases, I do have to ask a very serious question. Nun, did you watch Blue Period this week?
Yes, I did. I watched both episodes.
Cool.
I missed one and I watched that and I watched an episode.
Okay, so do you have any comments on the weekly that you want to talk about?
I forgot to pull up the comments, but I doubt there's anything. Well, maybe on the weekly. I don't know about the quiz episode. I don't think there's anything on the quiz that I would have wanted to talk about.
Yeah, the quiz didn't have any comments, but it isn't doing... I don't know. I think it's fine. Let me see. A lot of people said fights that they liked. Some good fights I saw in there. Let me try to find... Oh, I didn't even think about it like this, but it actually is so funny. The Kage Pro had 24 comments on the weekly. The fact that Vindy tried making a point about how his planning is not bad by planning out an analogy, then proceeding to fail at communicating it is comedy gold. I didn't even think about it like that, but you're totally right. The only thing you're wrong about there is that I didn't plan out the analogy. I just started talking and let what happened happen. If you think I plan anything, that's honestly, I take that as a compliment because I plan nothing.
Seth the programmer versus the BSA easily. That's a good Dot comment.
Great comment. Really ruined, though, by the fact that Dot was not around for that arc and probably never even listened to that episode of the BSA.
Okay, dude. You're just being fucking toxic. You can't let this man appreciate some art. You have to fucking call him out, dude. This is why the Weeb Club's
just
toxic.
Just because he was a fucking fetus when it happened. Wow,
yeah, you're not being inclusive. You fucking bigot. Shut up, you bigot. It's not up
now.
Fucking bigot. Holy shit.
I want to see a big. I'll show you bigoted. That's this fucking episode.
What the fuck? Then Manji just wants a Naruto to stop him from killing people and becoming president. Sure. An old lady told me I could become president at work yesterday, so I mean, Titania might be on something.
She told you could be Hokage?
No, see, that's the thing is, it sounds wild, but at the same time, I got shit hurt. Like, people told me shit like that when I was working in retail. Fucking customers will just tell you the weirdest shit, like, out of fucking nowhere, and it's like, okay, dude, you clearly have a lot going on right now. Because of my beard, I've been compared to both Abraham Lincoln and John Wilkes Booth. I don't know what that means. Like, different times, I don't get it. I don't know. Customers are weird, man.
Customers, sad face. I don't think there's many others. Some people put some there were some really funny answers actually that people gave. One of them, and this guy in his comment did say that Hunter x Hunter wasn't mentioned in the video yet is in the thumbnail. Multiple people brought up Hunter x Hunter fights, so that just isn't true. We did talk about Hunter x Hunter, or at least mentioned it. So is
we never went full into any of them, but we did.
We did mention it.
Bring some, yeah.
But they had Dick versus Maddox, which I think is funny, having like a real fight in there. Yeah. Then there were just a lot of people having a bunch of different fights. Some of the fights are, there are some fights that were very similar across a lot of them. But it was interesting seeing just all the fights that people talked about. And then there was nothing on the Reddit and no real comments on the anime quizzes. There was one that I responded to, but it was just someone saying that they wanted to know what my reading speed is because I got the right answer before they finished reading. But I just gave a little smiley face. So
I was curious on which one they were talking about, but like if
I have no idea.
Specific, yeah, I don't know.
All right, yeah. So topic. None. Do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, let's. Today we have a patron voted topic. You can give us money and get your topic picked. We will probably pick your topic if it's more interesting than this one. Yay! So today we're talking about loan words. When we take words from otaku culture in Japan, bring them over to America, they might have similar enough meanings, might be a little different, might be very different, but we have words that we can talk about today. Very cool, very epic, very poggers.
Oh, poggers. So I guess to start with one loan word that I definitely think is like really interesting because I think that like it's kind of it definitely of I think almost any loan word we could talk about that especially comes from weebs or anime watchers or people in general just like watching anime and appropriating words is actually just the word anime in and of itself. Because I think most of us know, right, that anime in Japan really just means any cartoon, right? It's any animated thing. But I think that saying that it means that in Japanese, so it has to mean that when we use the word as well, is almost wrong in a sense because I think the word has been appropriated by English as a language to mean something else. And that happens all the time, right? That's, you could say that's like problematic or something, but that's just how language works, right? People appropriate words from other things, right? English isn't just an amalgamation of like Romanic languages, right? There's some Nordic languages and some other like languages that get appropriated into
English is I've heard, I forget what the number one was, but I think it's just the language in the world that has the second most highest number of loan words. So
so I mean English constantly is appropriating these words into its lexicon, and I think that anime is a word like that where we took it from Japan, and to them it just means like any animation. But I think in English, anime pretty much just means like, I mean, some people use it more broadly, right, to use anything that's like Japanese animation influence. But generally, I think most people use it to mean like Japanese animated series or movies or something like that, right? That is like what anime has been. Like the definition has been changed when we appropriated it to our language to mean that, right? So it's not just it's almost not even the same as just using a word in its meaning and like interspersing it in English, because I would argue I think anime has almost become an English word at this point, right? Like it gets
there's a I would recommend the Cynic Clinic video on the word anime and its origins, because it wasn't even always used in Japan to describe anime. Like they used the word like manga video for a time period and stuff, and there's different words that it's got a history to it basically. So it was a neat video. So I just thought I'd recommend that as being relevant to what you're saying.
Woo.
Yeah, I haven't seen that video, but I do think that's like an interesting.
I'll try to remember to link it in the description.
Starting point of the conversation, because I mean, I think that's a word where it gets used, and it started, I guess, is like the idea of like a loan word, right? Of like taking a word and just using it instead of like your language's version of the word. But now it actually means a different thing than it means in Japan, which I think is like really interesting.
Well, to use another example that's kind of in the reverse, in Chaos Child, I remember that because Chaos Child has like a dictionary of terms where if someone says something, it's defined in, you could like see you'll unlock the entry, and then you could read the definition of the term. So they'll use like science, because they'll use like sci-fi terminology or science terminology. And but I remember one stuck out to me because obviously I'm playing the official English translation, and they say comic. and because the characters in universe were using the English word comic or komiku probably, and to refer to Western graphic novels basically. So like they're using an English word the same way we use Japanese words like anime or manga to just talk about media from other countries, right? So which I guess was what I was gonna say about like things going both words, because I think the quote unquote issue with buzzwords is if like do they capture the original meaning, and if in worst case scenario do they overwrite the original meaning, and like I think it was even it was Lime Phoenix who suggested the topic, right? Sorry.
They did.
I think he was the one who messaged me about it, because the example he brought up was doujin music, which is basically fan just released music, I guess, in Japan, where with how the word doujin has been kind of like appropriated in English, it's kind of it's hard to not to use the word and not think about like hentai manga, right? Because that's when that's just what we're familiar with. We use it because it really just refers to self-published works that aren't done in a professional sphere, and those happen because like Western fans like these media. Hey, look, there's fan-made media based on that same media. These are called doujins, and guess what? It's porn. So that gets spread around first, and overshadowing the fact that a lot of visual novels like Fate or When They Cry started off with doujin circles. Clamp, they started off as a doujin circle, not necessarily doing like pornographic works, but so it's just so that's an example of like where the meaning is different, and like not knowing that and just assuming that the meaning is the same when the words are used in two different languages, even if they're technically the same word, is I guess where the issue comes in. Because again, to give an example of how it goes both ways, I hear so many times in anime and stuff where they use English words, and I just like and the subs don't always translate the words as they are, and they shouldn't, because a Japanese person using the English word isn't like a common one is pinch, or like when a character is in trouble, they'll use the word pinch because, and that does share the English meaning of like I'm in a pinch, but if you just translate it literally, like no one fucking actually talks like that anymore, so it doesn't make sense to translate it literally when
and not only is it like no one says I'm in a pinch, they'll just say like pinch, right? Like they'll go like die pinch, and it's like, okay, we don't say big pinch.
Right. So the like I can see where the meaning came from, but it's no longer there with the way it's no longer one-to-one there with the way it's used. And another way you can sort of see that is I remember I don't know if they're still like floating around. Probably there used to be like websites where you could like plug in a word and it would like translate it through Google Translate 1,000,000 times basically, or like 80 times or something like that. And you could, and it's funny to watch a phrase or paragraph get completely butchered going from language to language, because that's just language doesn't work that way, right? There is no one-to-one translation of something. And like super literal, and if there is, like a super literal translation is going to end up like being really dry on its own. So I prefer, like I've been watching Kill la Kill right now, and actually do like the subtitles quite a bit, because they're not just like doing the most basic literal translation possible. Like they'll try and work in wordplay, and I can hear some of the words and recognize that what's being changed, and and it's good. I like it. So like I think people try to like I actually saw the take that if they use English words in Japanese, they should just be translated one-to-one, and that's what I was thinking of, because someone was just bitching about I guess it was for Kamen Rider Fies, and I saw someone in the comments actually like complaining about that, and I was like, oh my fucking god, you should not be an authority on translation of any kind, because that's just not how it works. So I just wanted to get, because I definitely think, especially like One Piece has this, like, if you've heard the word nakama before, like there's just this history of like sort of, what's the word? Like putting these words on a pedestal when they're just fucking normal ass words, and like acting like they're more than they are, and leaving them untranslated because, and it's just like, no.
Well, so like, sometimes I think I almost understand where instead of it's like putting a word on a pedestal, I think like okay, like an example of something where specifically about translation is like honorifics, right? Like personally, I don't I prefer the honorifics to be like put in the
There he
subs
is.
or not like translated out because like they have a meaning that is hard to translate without getting very wordy or sounding very stilted in English because we don't refer to people the same way, right?
Right. No, actually, because I like to use the the example of the Kill la Kill set of subtitles. It is removing the honorifics, and I can still like hear them and recognize them for what they, and because I know them, so I'm not bothered by it. But if you don't know that already, then you are losing out on that. Even though
or
I
when
think,
manga
do think the
does
rest
it.
of the translation is like good. Manga, you can't hear it, right? Like in an anime, I can hear like when Mikusuki, the teacher, calls Ryuko-kun. I know he's saying that because he's a teacher and she's a student. I get it, but if you're reading a manga, you don't know what he said because you can't hear him.
Right.
Right.
And so that can be like a legitimate part of it, and I think that there's like more I think with that can happen where like sometimes it can be translated, but I think there's almost like a like part of the idea even of loanwords is essentially like if you watch a bunch of anime and sub, there are words that get repeated over and over and over in a bunch of different series with very similar meanings, and eventually people catch on to what those words mean, right? And so I think that then there are times where the translator almost just keeps the word untranslated because maybe they see it as like it would be too wordy to translate, or it doesn't translate one-to-one, but this word's common enough, right, that people would know it. You know what I mean? Or people would know that like the meaning it has and how that differs from the meaning like that it has like in English, right? Like one that I think of a lot is I remember when I learned this, and this is like very early on, like one of the first times that I learned this when I was watching anime was the word baka, right? Because like you hear it a lot and you think of like a lot of times it just gets translated as idiot or stupid, right?
Right.
But it more closely is like dummy, right? Like it's less of like.
Well, it can vary. I've heard that it's also a regional thing because there's also you just played Danganronpa Trial 1, Aho. And I've heard like one is read as offensive and one is read as more playful, but that changes depending on what region you're in. What so in other words, baka can be seen as more offensive and aho can be seen as more playful in like lesser. No, or I don't know which. I just remember hearing that, and I'm not 100% sure how true it is. But I thought like that's the thing is language is a form of expression, and that's what I was trying to get across. And like I think with translation, people want like the meaning, and they don't want the meaning to be lost. But on some level, that's kind of inevitable, and that's why when I talk about language, like in my Naruto video, I brought up the kanji for nin, endurance, and the kanji, right? Like because I never read those kanji when I read Naruto because I only read the English translation. I looked up, I found out about those after the fact. So it's just kind of like I think translators should do the best job possible, but there are just limitations. Like a language in itself is a means of expression, and different languages like express different things. Like Japanese doesn't have like a library of swear words to use like English does. So you're not usually going to see a lot of swears in Japanese work that's translated to English. So it's just that's just because the languages express different things. And honorifics are another example of something that Japanese can express that it's more difficult in English. So
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, yeah, and so I think that there is like a weird thing, and I think that that like almost the first step to, and I think it's interesting that we're talking about it because like I do think like the first step to people using these loan words in right, because eventually we'll have to talk about the way people use these words like in normal conversation, right, or in their everyday life or whatever, which people do, and it's really cringe. But I think that like the first step is
you guys are my Nakama.
Well, yeah, but like the first step is right to talk about it in more of a more of like this like take it like one thing at a time, right? So it's like first does come into like how the words get translated, right? So like with Nakama, if you read the manga for One Piece, unless maybe the Viz translation doesn't do it, but especially if you read like any fan translation for any part of it, because you want to see Zoro instead of Zolo, then you'll know what Nakama is after 50 chapters, right? You'll know what the word means. And that happens with I think a lot of words in a lot of series, and so I think that eventually these words come up, and then and then you might reach the point where you're watching a show and you'll hear someone say, or you'll read the subs say friend, and you'll hear either, Tomodachi or Nakama, and you'll know the difference, right? Just by listening. And so then, like, it's interesting how, like, that is something that can happen that then leads to people not obviously not knowing Japanese, right? Anyone who says they learn Japanese from watching anime is fucking cringe. But knowing words, right? And knowing the meaning, even somewhat, of certain words being used.
I do think it's like, like I definitely think, again, like saying you learn Japanese from watching anime is dumb. But I do feel like good when I recognize words and stuff. Because like recently, I played Fire Emblem Awakening, like a little bit of it. And you can't turn on the subtitle. Like, you don't get the option to turn on the subtitles until after the first cutscene. So I had and even when you switch to like English, the first cutscene literally won't play in English. So it's like forced Japanese with no subtitles. But I still got the idea of like everything in that cutscene that was being said for the most part. Like, I still got the gist of it, which I was pretty proud of myself for understanding.
Nice.
Just from picking up on the words that I knew. So, I mean, I definitely do think it, like, the quote-unquote learning Japanese from anime isn't, like, a replacement or anything, but it does help you pick up on more than you could have otherwise in certain situations. Especially when, like, a translation is, like, a little bit inaccurate. I can't remember what I watched that had an inaccurate translation, like a slightly inaccurate one, but I do remember hearing a word and looking at the subs and it was like, no, it's supposed to be this. Maybe it was either when I was, I don't know. I don't want to just say it was that because I can't remember if it was that for sure, but I know that happened recently as well. But
well,
yeah, it is hard. Cool.
Yeah, I think it is hard for us to say an accurate translation because it's not like we speak Japanese and can actually. No, but I get what you're saying. Where like the point you're making is that you think the meaning in terms of like like the meaning of the story and so the meaning of the line was lost, right? Which that can come from not just. And here's another thing about translation, right? That can come from not just not knowing, not being fluent in Japanese, but if someone's not fluent in English and is translating it, right? Like I was reading Baki last night, and a character said 100, but it was written out in the manga as it was 100, right? So 100. But it was written out as A and then the number 100. So I read that as A100 because I speak the language, right? But so in that case, it's obvious like the person who's doing the translation either just doesn't have a brain or more realistically isn't super familiar with the way that the language works, so thinks that A and then the number 100 is like a way to write 100 when it isn't.
Right.
And so that can happen too, and that can cause weird things in the translation where it's not even that we know Japanese better than the person translating it, but that we know English better than them, right? And so that can cause times where if we know the meaning of a couple words and then we know English really well, we can think of a better way to put that into English, right? As opposed to maybe knowing Japanese better.
Yeah, though, especially when it comes to official things, like translators, have like they have people above them who, like they're not the one making all the decisions, right? So, because I do think people are a little harsh on translators, and I think rather than, at least like because again, like obviously the limit to the discussion is like I can't read the original Japanese. Right, but I definitely think it's smarter to like think of it, or more helpful to think of it in terms of like, okay, why was it translated like this versus like, because not, again, it's inevitable somewhere for meaning to get lost. I think it's at some point. So like, jokes, I think it makes sense to translate or even change slightly. But it depends on like what it, like is the joke being used like because one thing that bugs me about sometimes is terminology that's supposed to be consistent not being consistent. And one example, the example I always think about is One Piece, because officially speaking you have the Celestial Dragons, then you have Doflamingo the Heavenly Demon, and the Heavenly Tributes, and they all use the same like root word because ten, which is supposed to be like angelic or heavenly or celestial. But so it bugs me slightly that we use different terms for these three things that are supposed to be connected, because Doflamingo is formerly a heavenly dragon, so he should be the heavenly demon. Right? So, or like, or I personally, like, and I'm fine with you if you want to use celestial dragon or, heavenly dragon. I'm fine either way. My preference is just, like, I think that whichever you use, you should be consistent with using all of them,
three,
because,
yeah.
like, they're connected terms. Like, so, so I you'll notice, like, in some of my videos, I even say heavenly dragon because I just personally prefer heavenly dragon, heavenly demon, and heavenly tribute to celestial dragon, celestial demon, and celestial tribute. Like, even though celestial dragon or heavenly dragon, personally, I find either way that's pronounced. I just prefer heavenly for the other two, so I try to use heavenly for all of them. So, and that's just a personal nitpick, and, like, some people disagree with, like, I think Vindy, we had a debate a while ago, because Mirko from MHA, like, her name's written in katakana, and with katakana in general, it's meant to represent, like, foreign language in the first place. So I think it's, much more contextual and up to, some level of interpretation regarding, like, how you're supposed to read it. Like, I don't like how Zolo sounds, but it's a perfectly valid translation of his name, because it's katakana. It's meant to be read in either way. So it's not like it's being done, like, even though I don't like it, and I do prefer Zoro personally, but, so, like, yeah, that's, there's, like, reasons that these debates happen, and I guess the question is, like, okay, what's intended? What is, preferred? And,
well, I think,
and I think an example, or go on.
I was well, that's what I think is interesting. Like a couple of the ones you brought up, right? So both One Piece ones, right? Where that comes down to, I feel like now we're just talking more about translation, but we'll get back to loanwords eventually.
I think loanwords are kind of like, well, because they, I guess, like, yeah, they're not being translated, but I think the meaning behind the word is still really important. Like, I'm gonna bring another example from another Cynic Clinic video, but I keep going.
So then there's another way that a translation could be inaccurate, even if they understand both languages, which is being bad at the actual, like, understanding the series, right? So realistically, someone should be able to put together that the three celestial, like, bodies should be one thing, right? But maybe maybe it slipped over there, and maybe the person above them.
Well, especially when you're talking about, like, One Piece, a series that has had, like, several different official translators over the course of its 20 plus year run. Like, it's natural that things are going to slip through the cracks like that.
Right.
I think, but, and sometimes, like, the other issue is translating a story as it's ongoing, because, when the official Viz translation had Blackbeard talking on Jaya, and he mentions Haki by name, but it wasn't translated. In fact, that bubble has the opposite of what I would say is the intended meaning from, like, looking at other sources and, like, trying my own Japanese translation with the dictionary, is, like, yeah, the different translators, they didn't know that what Haki was at the time it was being translated. Like, all little things like that cause mistakes. Or the example I think I gave a while ago was in a Gundam series. There was a character that was called Stella, but, like, later on in the series, the official English wording for her name was Stellar. So they were wrong for, and now that's, like, the common way to refer to her name, because they were translating as it came out and weren't considering the entire series. So, yeah.
Sad. There's something I wanted to say, but I forgot. Oh, yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, if the 4Kids dub was, like, actually good and stuff, there'd be a lot of people who actually prefer Zolo and think it's, like, better than Zoro. But because 4Kids dub was bad, that's why nobody likes Zolo. It'd be so true. There'd be a lot of Zolo people
I also
out there.
think Zoro just sounds better. Zolo makes me think of Rolo, and now I'm thinking about Candy. It's like, come on, dog.
Those people would be like, Zolo flows more. Zoro. It's a little more flow with Zolo there.
I guess the other example I was going to bring in why I do think loanwords are you kind of have to talk about translation with them is the other Cynic Clinic video, where he mentions the term, he discusses the term sakuga, which is a loan word from Japanese, but in Japanese it just means drawing. Like, there's no statement of quality in regards to just the word sakuga alone, but as a loan word, it's being used exclusively to refer to good animation, basically, right?
Right.
Where in Japanese, if you wanted to say good animation, you might say, like, sakuga ega, which, means good drawing, basically. And in fact, there's even he talks about a term that's used to discuss, like, I forget the other word, but it does have the word sakuga to refer to, like, bad animation. And I think, like, where, you know, like, or, which in the English word, I would say, the term, you've probably heard of, Vindy, you've been to 4chan, a quality animation in all caps, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, so, like, you know, it's, that's kind of why I think it's kind of natural we moved on to translation in general, just because it's kind of, like, inherent. I think you can't avoid it. So, I'll try and, like, but go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, well, and you know, another example of something that's very similar to that, almost the exact same, but comes from German, is the K slur, right? So
the actual slur that refers to Jews, but the one that refers to
so
media.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. None. It's in quotations. Okay, I'm not one of these cringers, but Kino. Just
Oh my
you
God.
used to be someone. You would say K slur a lot, Vindy. You used to.
Yeah, I did. I used to slur. Hey, we were all edgy children once. Okay. But like Kino used to. It literally just means film, right? In German. But it got appropriated. It started I feel like it definitely started on 4chan, like on TV. But I could be wrong about that. But like it then got appropriated from meaning, you know.
Yeah, no, it was originally, I think, someone trying to like use this word as like a way to describe films that are like exceptionally good, and then it basically got memed to death into just meaning good.
Yeah, like because it used to mean like the like top tier, like, you know, like a masterpiece, right? Like that is like it'd be the same as like when someone calls like a movie cinema, right? Like this is cinema, right? It was like, it's like a similar thing. And then it just got turned into meaning good because I think people didn't know. Because like
I don't even think it's that people didn't know. I just think
I think it's spread out of. I definitely think it is true. People, I think it spread so far outside of just its initial zone of like where it started, where it got so bigger and so like as something spreads like that, right? Its meaning gets more and more simplified. Because less people know like the actual origin and what it was originally like used to mean, so it just became good, right? When it started as something like more of a specific kind of thing. Just as it spreads and more people start using it who don't know it, like where its origin is, then it you know.
I mean, from browsing 4chan around the same time, I'm pretty sure that people, like, no one took that original meaning seriously because it was, you know, really obviously pretentious and, you know, clown-ish to be like, no, this is a Kino movie is a really good movie. Please listen to me. Like, it's 4chan.
Are we gonna pretend like TV?
You're talking about the same board that Bane posted for literally a decade.
Yeah. Like, and you know what? TV is being pretentious and Bane posting, okay? And that's all that board is. And it's half great and half pretentious, so.
We're like arguing about like, I don't know. See, that's the problem. Is I don't know which of us is the Bane and which of us is the Batman in this allegory. Which of us was born into the darkness and which of us was molded by it. See, because you could make the argument that I was born in the darkness because I was definitely on 4chan first. But I didn't browse TV a lot, so. Anyway.
Sad.
Yes, I was trying to Bane post, but, you know. I wish I could do a Bane impression. Okay, okay, yeah, so, loanwords.
I mean, I guess the one obvious one we haven't mentioned, just like people, you know, how we use tsundere. Like, you know, we obviously would have to take that from the Japanese word because we don't have anything that indicates that specific character archetype in English.
That's true.
Along
That's
with
really
like
good
plenty
point.
of other character archetypes we can't really describe in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point because that's something there's like a different type of loan word, right? As well as like the type of loan word that's we just don't have a word for it, right? Like, and that's some of the same thing that can happen, right? In other languages, right? Like we'll hear sometimes English words in used in Japanese because they just don't have a word for it, you know?
No, yeah, and because I was just reminded of a discussion. I think it was also on 4chan of like just discussion of the term tsundere and how there isn't an English equivalent. And I guess I remember someone bringing up a character, a Western character who you might consider tsundere, Helga from Hey Arnold. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, but that's just one character, and tsundere can be like there's multiple types of tsundere, right? Like as I understand, the classical the classical. The older definition was kind of like a character who starts out soon and becomes dere over the course of like their arc. Where the more modern tsundere is more like they use the
like
tsun
goes
to,
hot and cold
to hide the dere, and I like to use Chidoge as an example because she's both. Because she uses the tsun to hide the dere parts, but also she does grow more into Raku over the course of the story. So she's both the classic and the modern example of the tsundere.
Sometimes, and then the other interesting part about Chitoge is also that by the nature of how the series starts at the beginning, there are times where she has to use the dere to hide the tsun, right?
Yes, that's she's true. Forced to do that. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Shidoge she's a really interesting tsundere character because, I don't know. Nisako's really fucking good. But, anyway. So, yeah, I was just, because I was thinking about the Helga example because, I remember seeing that in discussion, like, ages ago, but then thinking about it now, I'm like, well, yeah, see, like, I can understand trying to make up an English version of the word, but, like, when the Japanese word already encompasses more meaning than any single like made up English term and it's already in use, like we should say this instead of tsundere, like it's not going to work unless it's we already have the word for it now. It's already been loaned basically, right? So at that point, like, what can you do?
I'm trying to think if there are any other words like that we use because we don't have like a great oh my god, okay, well you gotta bear with me because I do, well actually never mind, I take that back, never mind.
Well, you have to say what you were thinking.
I need to fact check something before I know.
Okay,
no, I was wrong, never mind. I had to fact check something, I was wrong. Don't worry about it.
I want to worry about it.
I'm not gonna say it because I was wrong. Like what I was gonna say, I stopped to fact check and I was wrong. So I'm
okay, you can say it was wrong. It's wrong now. Just say what it was gonna be.
No, because I'm not gonna openly implicate myself as being someone who's wrong.
Okay.
Failure is how we grow as human beings, Vindy.
Fucking, this is why you're anti-shonen.
And I grew internally. I internally grew. I don't have to look. Okay, I don't have to tell you how I grew to know that I grew inside. Okay, I just had a little mini training arc of my own. There was some introspection there. There was some failure, some hard work. I had to type it out. That took a lot of time.
So I guess as far as loanwords go, because I guess like you can say anime and manga are like words that we use too, because we we could have just called manga comics, but we decided to differentiate. Do people use like people know about the word otaku, but I don't see a lot of Western people like using it to describe themselves.
Oh yeah, they do.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm lucky, I guess.
Yeah, I think that like otaku is used by anime fans to describe themselves for sure.
Yeah. It's not used.
So it's more like an inner community thing, whereas like the word weeb is like more, I guess, closer to like a mainstream thing where a random person who's not into anime but kind of knows about it will call somebody like a weeb or like be like fucking weebs or whatever. Whereas otaku's like someone who's like really into anime and like would be nerdy enough to call themselves an otaku. Or,
I would definitely say that I think anime and manga are at that level where they're just words in our language now, right? You go to Barnes and Noble, there's a manga section that is different from the graphic novel section, right? You go to like a if they existed, if there were blockbusters in current day, right? You walk into a Blockbuster, sure, there would be an anime section, right? That's different from the cartoon section. They'd probably be next to each other.
Shot as to whether Avatar: The Last Airbender is there or not.
Going and moving all of the Avatar, moving all the Avatar DVDs from the cartoon section to the anime section to piss off weebs.
That'd be
funny. No, but okay, so. And so I think that's, those words do, but otaku definitely is a word that is used by, how do I say this kindly? This generation of anime fan that all are like, not all, but most of them getting into it are it's all about like the irony of it, or they're very ironically into it where they're like, because I don't want to assume things about people. But the people who make liking anime their personality is what I'll say, right? So the kind of guy who puts like anime stickers all over his car, right? and like, wears the Ahego hoodie and tries to force everyone he knows to watch an anime with him, right? That kind of guy, they all refer to themselves as otaku.
I do think there's also a second type of people who refer to themselves as otaku, which is just like the people who kind of go around acting like they're really knowledgeable about like anime culture in Japan and stuff, and like kind of see themselves as like a I'm trying to think of another word other than like a journalist. Like I wouldn't say they consider themselves a journalist, but it's like some kind of more, like a more, an expert or somebody who just has more importance than others.
Yeah, like me.
What the? Okay. Vindy confirming he's an otaku. He calls himself an otaku.
Yeah, I do actually. Well, and that one's funny because that one almost adopted the meaning in the same way the anime and manga did, where otaku, kind of just means like someone who is really nerdy and like dorky about like one thing and knows a lot about it, right? So in Japan, and I think most people listening know this, but for those that don't, right, you could be like a like a car otaku, right? Or I don't know, like a fucking a sports otaku, right? Like a guy who's really into his football team and watches it would be like a football otaku, But we've just kind of appropriated it to just mean someone who's really into anime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't. Okay, we haven't appropriated it to mean that because we don't use it, but the people who do use it is how they,
Yeah, actually, like, because I realized, like, aside from anime and manga, which, obviously we talked about already, I don't sprinkle very many Japanese words into, like, like, I'll say magical girl instead. I don't say mahou shoujo. Like, I don't do that. I don't even use sakuga a lot or anything like that. So, yeah. I think maybe there's some I use that I can't think of right now, but off the top of my head, I just realized, like, I tend not to. But go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, I think they're really cringe a lot of the time, right? When people like really like when people like sling in like baka or like like almost any of those words. There's a lot more that people will like put in that I can't even think of right now. Like if I was hanging out with someone and we became friends and they called me their tomodachi, that's the end of that relationship, bro. Like I'm sorry, it's over. But I do think that like a word like sakuga, right, can be really good shorthand if you're talking to other anime fans, right? Or like tsundere is one that we just don't have a word for, so you almost have to use it.
Oh yeah, that's another one, yeah. Or in general, like those kind of like there's also like yandere and kyudere aren't as common, and I don't think they're used as much.
Well, I think yandere is common.
Yandere is definitely is actually yandere is definitely is. Never mind.
Kudere isn't. You're right, because I think a lot of people don't even know what kudere is and assume that that's just a tsundere. So it's not.
Okay, I hope not because.
No, it is right. Like so many people call like Shinjo Gahara a tsundere when it's like not. You know what I mean? Like there are other whatever, and so. I think people definitely don't use that one as much as but yeah, sorry, continue.
I forget if I was going to say something else or what it was if I didn't.
It was about how, I don't know, like we weren't using the words a lot or something.
No, yeah, that was it. I was just trying to think of other words and I really, tsundere and yandere or some other ones, but no, yeah, we don't cringe and use a lot of, that was it. I don't remember if I had anything to add on to that.
You don't call your friends by honorifics in real life?
I'm leaving the call.
One word that I do think is like reasonable for people to like over like the English counterpart, at least in terms of anime, is like Yamero, just because it's said so funnily. Like I think people are like very yeah, like it's just funny. Like I understand that one a lot.
You know what other one actually, and this one is because me and my older brother years ago, this is when like we were in high school, when like playing like games, we'd use Tasukete when like one of us was gonna die, we'd be running a race screaming that, and that's actually kind of funny. It was cringe high school of us, and I don't do it anymore, right? But that was one. Kawaii is one that's really cringe to use, I think.
Very, yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot of
because that one has a direct translation, right? Like kawaii, just say cute. It's the words are almost the exact same.
Yeah. Well, the one that because this is an older loan word. In fact, it might be older than even like anime or manga. Karaoke, which I remember because people fucking butcher the shit out of that.
Yeah.
Karaoke. Like to the point that it's almost unrecognizable, and I have to realize like that's not how you fucking pronounce it. And now whenever I hear karaoke, I get like slightly mauled because I'm like.
Karaoke.
Well, I mean, maybe that's hypocritical because I also pronounce, anime incorrectly, but because it would be anime, but yeah. Anyway,
very epic.
I feel like we don't have much more to say about the topic, but hopefully it was helpful or interesting to someone. But I don't know. Do you have more to say? I don't.
Oh my god, Craftsdwarf. This toxic, rude old man, this fossil in the ground. What the fuck? Holy shit. What the fuck, dude?
Just keep going if you have any more to add, please.
Just waiting for Vindy to come back. He's like fucking, I don't know, maybe he's dealing with his cat or something. Maybe the cat's trying to eat him. Anyway, I have an offer for anybody. If someone pays $25 to the Weeb Club Patreon, we will watch Flushed Away and do some kind of video on it.
No!
I will make them watch Flushed Away.
You could literally just request it in the fucking weekly streams I do on my channel or my server and bully us into watching it with you.
And also, since Vindy's not here, he won't know about it.
Until the comments remind him, I guess.
Oh, well. Just keep it quiet. Somebody just do it, and he'll find out by surprise.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, the cat sitting took a shit and it was stinking up my apartment, so I had to go fucking.
Yeah, I figured the cat did something. Glad it didn't try to eat you though.
Well, he did bite me, but it's fine.
Wait, just now or just in general?
No, he's a little playful and he'll just bite to bite, like not like bite like breaking the skin, but like a little, like a little bite, So he just bit me on my toes as I was walking past.
Do you have more to say about the topic, Vindy Vondo?
Yeah, it's fucking unbelievable. Please don't use Japanese loanwords in your everyday life. Like, okay, the words that I think people can agree have become like an English word because we don't have another version for it, or, like anime and manga, right? Where, yes, they're Japanese loanwords, but, it's not only quicker, it's more socially acceptable actually to say anime than to say Japanese cartoon, right? Mm-hmm. But don't go around saying like kawaii or some shit, right? Or using honorifics with people, because that's fucking cringe. It's cringe.
Yeah.
And besides that, yeah, no, not really.
Okay, period.
Well, I guess to prove that I watched the episode.
Episodes.
Well, we're only talking about. Are we talking about both of them?
5 and 6, yeah. Because we didn't talk about them last week.
I don't have as much to say about the 5th episode.
Oh, I have a lot to say about the 5th episode.
Okay, go ahead. I'll talk about the 6th one.
Okay.
I loved episode 5. I really liked the idea of like he was kind of just drawing, but he had to start like he had to do what he did with his first drawing, right? Where like he had to have a meaning behind the art, right? And that like would make his art better. And I liked the way that him doing the big piece he did in the 5th episode visually kind of was similar to how he did his first art piece in the first episode, right? Where when he's really drawing with like this meaning behind it, he gets like lost in that meaning, more so than just he's painting and whatever. It's like, when he has this meaning that he's really working towards and thinking about as he's painting, it like consumes him and it makes his art really good. And I really liked that.
Very
also
cool.
Kawana hot.
No, yeah, I like the episode.
Is that the two-tone girl?
Yes.
Okay.
She had some stuff in the episode 6 as well, but also the way, well, like he fucked up and then he made like a gross version of the same like really good piece with the mouth and like it ranked really low and I was like, you dumbass, like it's just ew. No. He just copied himself as is explored in episode 6, but yeah. But yeah, it was cool seeing his growth, and then so yeah, episode 6.
So I thought it was a decent episode overall, but as the series goes on, I do hope they kind of like how like Yuguchi keeps talking about his whole hard work thing and like saying that he doesn't have any talent or anything. Yeah, I can't say I'm like a super fan of how the series is going about it right now, because it's like I do get that he has to work really hard because he's behind and stuff, but it's like
But also,
he
yeah,
keeps
because
chalking it up to people.
He's catching up really fucking fast.
Yeah,
right?
first of all, like, yeah, I was gonna bring that up eventually. That, like, yeah, he clearly has some talent, but like, I think it's like it's clearly more so that these people have been just doing art longer than him and have been into it longer, so it makes sense that he's behind. So I feel like for this, like, if the series is like if I'm to take what he's saying right now at face value, which I'm not, because I'm open-minded to what the series might actually say later, it would be like very wrong to say that he is just not talented and that his hard work is like, his only like, it's not that he has to overcome talented people, and we don't know if these people are talented or if it's just that, like, yeah, they've been in art longer.
Well, and even like, because there's the like the fucking title of the episode is like mental breakdowns aren't a joke or something like that. And like a girl in his class gets hospitalized. There's the other dude who is like tearing up a paper and fucking like crying. So
yeah, all of
like,
them are working
saying,
hard.
I'm not
and, like,
talented. And yeah, they're like, Kawan even says like, maybe, there's such a thing as too much hard work, right? So even if Yaguchi is like putting in a lot of effort, he either, he's talented enough that he doesn't need to go that far with his effort to the point that he destroys himself, or he's talented enough to like manage himself and his hard work to not just like, there's still something going on there that's like, he's not just working hard, right? And he's still like improving and growing, like, like he's got something going on that's not just hard work, but he's reducing everything that he has to hard work because, for reasons that will probably be explored later, I expect. But we'll see.
And I just think like the whole idea of saying that someone's just talented and that's why they're here is really reductive to someone else's efforts and like what they've been going through. And it almost like, I would even say it almost dehumanizes people when you just say that they're just all talented and I'm, the one working hard and all these things. It's just like, it's a really bad mindset to have. So like, I do hope the series does actually explore that in a way that'll bring more nuance to it. Because I do think in the way that it's presented now, it just seems like a really simple outlook that isn't like, actually, I don't know, it just doesn't seem...
I don't think the series will, because like, especially like considering Yotasuke, like he's also considered really talented, but like he said a couple episodes ago, he's almost envious, or like he mentions like, oh yeah, you got it so easy because you don't only have art, you want to be here, you can go do something else, right? Where which he got mad about that because he is trying his best at art, but Yotasuke, even though he's talented, he's also like bound by that talent. So there's like that doesn't. So it's not necessarily easier for him, or rather, it's difficult in other ways.
It just kind of seems like at least right now. Hopefully, it's just more so that like, yeah, these people have their own insecurities, and their insecurities are kind of making them project things that are untrue onto other people. So I do kind of hope that like Yaguchi's mindset about hard work and talent changes, and he realizes something.
Yeah, and especially considering the stuff we got with Kuana this episode, where like, because the teacher even said like,
she's
comparing yourself is fine, but doing it too much is not good, and she warns Yaguchi that, and then later in the episode, like, he mentioned that he didn't see her, Kawana's paintings as that similar to her older sisters. Like, she's the one who's comparing herself so much, and that's burdening her and making it more difficult for herself. So, so yeah, I do think, like, with that in mind, Yaguchi, it's, we'll see the faults of Yaguchi's perspective later. But I see what you're, with what we've seen now, I see where you're going, what you're saying.
I could also see, like, what was that two-tone girl's name again? Sorry.
Kuana.
Kuana. Yeah. I could kind of see her later, kind of having more issues. Like it seems like, even though that she's talented, she, well, I don't actually know if she's talented or not, because, I don't think we've been shown enough of her previous, time as an artist to really know that for sure. But, I could see her having like this kind of disadvantage of getting into the art school that they want to get into, just because her other family's been there. So like, she could seem less special to them in a sense. Like she has to go above and beyond maybe to impress them. Like, I do think there's some things there that could kind of change the dynamic. But yeah, I'm not complaining about what's going on so far. I just, I'm looking forward to and hoping things change a little bit at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, obviously I'll probably read the manga when the anime ends, and who knows where the anime will end off. So, I don't know. Vindy, what did you have to say about the episode?
I liked it. I really liked the part about the girl working too hard, because that feels like something I can totally see art students doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely, I think this was the first episode where I really did kind of see and get the feeling that, like, man, this probably is moving really fast through the series. Just because, like, we're already almost at, the exams. So this episode really had me like, oh, we're, moving a little fast towards like, I don't know how to, like, we're moving fast through the manga to get to, like, the college stuff.
No, well, yeah, that's what, like, because I would expect that at, like, at a speed, like, because the manga is still ongoing, so I would expect that, like, him passing the exam isn't the end of the series, probably, but, we'll have a better idea when we read the manga, I think, versus the anime, so, I mean, I guess we're only halfway through, so, yeah, probably, maybe it's already in college in the anime, I don't know, we'll find out on our own, but yeah, good episodes, good show.
I agree. Yeah. All right, so weekly roundup.
So I watched Spider-Man Far From Home.
Pog.
I liked it more than Homecoming.
Whoa.
Pog!
Look, I don't understand why people would like Homecoming more overall.
It's really good. It's
someone who really likes Homecoming.
No, it's really fucking good. So. Like, I support you, King.
I think it's, like, kind of insane how Mysterio was in that movie.
The presentation in particular was, like, I mean, Mysterio is good and really works, but also, like, the presentation of his illusions was really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was, like, really visually great, especially when it was, like, like, kept changing Peter's costume. Like, first he went back to his regular costume, and then he even went further back to his, like, hooded, his
homemade costume.
Yeah, his homemade one. Yeah, I thought it was super cool. I like how Mysterio, like, even though I already knew Mysterio was a villain, I do think it was, like, really great how he just kind of seemed like a normal hero at first. And, like, I do think the MCU has changed things enough to where you could maybe buy into Mysterio was going to be a hero this time. If you already knew the character, I don't know.
Like, even rewatching it, the scene where he gets the glasses is just, it's like, fuck.
Yeah, he plays Peter really... so hard because he makes it seem like he doesn't want it and kind of rejects it at first. And, like, he really, like, was, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think even if like, it is, it is Mysterio, it is a bad guy, it works so well because, like, when you see it, you get, like, this moment where, like, even if you know that he's not supposed to have it, the moment when you realize how hard he was playing Peter, and, it also could even be, even if you know he's going to be the villain, right? You don't know that he's a villain yet, right? Because a lot of times, the MCU likes to, or will give the villain, like, their full origin in the movie, right? So you could have thought he's still a good guy and he becomes bad, but seeing, like, everything's fake is super cool to see. I really like that reveal where everything in the bar just disappears.
Yeah, and also the way, like, because this is the real end of Phase 3, and so it calls back to Iron Man 1 with the fucking, like, one of the scientists was the guy who fucking Stain yelled at in the first movie. The guy working with, and then of course Mysterio himself was like Barf was in Civil War, I think. Yeah, it was Civil War. Like, his whole thing is he's just being, like, a man-child, and he's pissed about Tony, and he's out of his mind and insane.
He's like the pettiest really character in all of the MCU. like what really got me was after he was defeated, him. Yeah. And is he dead right now? I don't know if
he's dead. Yeah. He's dead.
He still decided to, like, do that video and, make Peter look like the bad guy. Like,
and I didn't catch it the first time, but he was planning to do that when he said, because he says something about, like, how he's gonna do that, right? I don't remember exactly what he says, but he has, like, a line, right, that, like, is implying that he
had that fail safe in mind.
Yeah, that he was planning to do that, right? Where he's like, watch this, or I got it under control. And then that's what happens, right? So he almost was, like, kind of, like, okay with, even if he dies and doesn't become a big hero, if he can destroy all of Tony Stark's legacy, which at this point has been transferred over to Peter, like he's okay with that, and that's so crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, I also like, you know, the Peter and his friends are still good. Like Ned is good.
Yes.
The scene where where MJ like, oh, you're Spider-Man, and he's like, what? Like that was good.
Yeah, and he's like hiding. He's like, I'm not Spider-Man. I'm not Spider. And then eventually she's like, okay, look, I'm Spider-Man, and
all this stuff is going on, and she's like, well, like, because she's like caught off guard because she only was like partly sure that he was Spider-Man, and I don't know, I like MJ. She's good.
There's a few I've seen it a couple different times, a couple different like series now, where it's like, oh, the female like love interest or whatever figures out the superhero is the superhero. I always love those scenes. I actually think they're always great.
Yeah.
And I really liked Ned's relationship with that girl.
Yeah, and I'm very upset that they are not a thing anymore.
They've just moved on, okay? See, I can't be upset about that, because my favorite part of their, like, relationship is that, like, last, like, that bit where he's talking about breaking up and how they've just moved on, and they're just in a better place with their lives or something. Is so funny.
God.
I also thought Peter was just really great in the movie in general. I think, I think he's like a lot, like he was already like one of my favorites in the MCU, but I think he's moved up a lot. And I also just think that, like, you know, watching this movie really, like, it almost drives home why I think this Peter is also really good. And, you know, I feel like I remember a lot of people discussing, like, you know, Tobey Maguire versus Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and I just think that discussion's like really bad, especially after having seen this film, because it's like, you know how people really like suck off Tobey Maguire's, like, people are very like suck off about his, like, oh, he went through so much and he fucking, you know, whatchamacallit, Raimi's the only one who understands the true essence of Spider-Man. But it's like, when you watch this movie in particular, it really does have, like, you know, that whole, like, the whole responsibility thing, and the whole, like, you know, just how much Peter has to, like, sacrifice and go through to be Spider-Man, but he still does it because it's, you know, the responsible thing to do. And it's just like, I really don't understand how people can watch this movie and, like, not get what it's doing, especially with, like, you know, even aside from, like, Peter having to, like, mess up relationships or have a really hard time in them, like, this Peter, more than any other Spider-Man in, like, the live action, as far as the live actions are concerned, has, like, a lot of insecurity, especially with having to fill in the role of Tony Stark. Like, you know, he thinks he needs to be the next quote unquote Iron Man, and it's like tearing him up in this movie. And I think there's a lot there that makes him, like, a really great character. And especially after watching this movie, like, I super understand why Tom Holland could be someone's favorite Spider-Man. And I think, you know, this movie, like, before my ranking was, like, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 1, then Homecoming, but now it would be Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Far From Home, then Spider-Man 1, then Homecoming.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Can't wait for No Way Home to be your favorite Spider-Man movie, then.
I don't know about that.
It could be. It'll have all the Spider-Men.
Hey, spider people, excuse you.
They're men. Yeah, there's a lot in Far From Home I really like. I fucking love the scene where he's like, where, like, Peter's working in the back of the ship making his suit, and Happy sees
yeah. He definitely sees, like, a little bit of what Tony Stark would do by looking at him there.
Yeah, fucking great.
No,
actually.
yeah, the whole talk, and, like, I love Led Zeppelin, and just, you know, Peter just being a little more like Tony in ways he didn't even, you know, and like, yeah, it's good movie.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in the movie that I really enjoyed. It's a really great movie. I am looking forward to No Way Home a lot, just because it's like, you know, I think just because of how much I like Peter even more from this movie, seeing No Way Home's really gonna push that even further, I think.
Okay. So, two things kind of about the movie. I also love the way that, like, Ned and MJ are like being like Ned's really jealous about the fact that MJ knows that Peter's Spider-Man as well.
I knew first.
Yeah, I knew first, and he's like, I'm the man in the chair and stuff like that. And then the other thing is, did you guys know? Because I found this out recently. I didn't know it when it was first announced. That Spider-Man series that was announced for Disney Plus the freshman year. It's MCU Spider-Man.
Okay.
It's his origin story.
See, when I saw the announcement,
I don't think that's been confirmed yet.
No, it has been confirmed. It has been confirmed. I didn't even think it was, because I just assumed it was just gonna be, because there's like another animated Spider-Man show on Disney Plus that's like not MCU Spider-Man. So I thought it would just be like an animated show, but it's specifically Tom Holland's Spider-Man getting his powers before Civil War. So it's like everything he does to Spider-Man before Civil War happens.
What's the non-MCU show on Disney Plus?
Yeah, I thought it was just maybe some old Spider-Man stuff.
No, I'm pretty sure it's still coming out. What is it? It's like fucking let me try to find it. It's Spidey and his amazing friends.
Oh,
yeah, it's a 2021 show.
That. You fucking.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what that was.
I didn't say anything wrong. I said nothing wrong in my statement. Here's what it looks like, okay? It is a Disney Junior show, so it is made for little baby children.
This fucking guy.
But I was correct by saying that there is a animated Spider-Man show on Disney Plus that is not part of the MCU. Nothing I said there was wrong.
Okay, well, I was just thinking of something unrelated to Spider-Man, but anyway.
Yeah.
Well, because, like, I'm looking and it does have a different, like, Marvel logo than the MCU stuff does.
This one?
See the Marvel logo?
It's it doesn't. It's not. Yeah. Well, it's not the Marvel Studios logo. And I just don't know. That might just be because it wasn't made by Marvel Studios specifically.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing I'm thinking of, because, like, remember I sent an ad the other day because of the X-Men 97 continuation series?
Yeah.
That one does have the Marvel Studios logo.
I would be willing to bet, and here's my answer. I'd be willing to bet, because this is a Disney Junior show. It wasn't made as an MCU thing. Or it wasn't made by Marvel Studios, right? It was made by one of Disney Junior's
that's
teams.
That's what, because, like, obviously I'm not going to commit either way, because, like, with X-Men 97 being somehow part of the MCU, like, just the thought boggles the mind. But the fact that it does have the Marvel Studios logo, it was announced with a bunch of other MCU stuff, I'm like, I'll bet. I don't know what the fuck they have in mind.
I think we'll just have to see if what it essentially will amount to is Marvel Studios anything that Marvel produces and creates, like, almost internally through their studios, or is Marvel Studios specifically reserved for
this is very much
MCU
a first case situation with the X-Men 97 continuation. So, like, there's no precedent for something like that. Because there is precedent for stuff being incorporated into the MCU, right?
Yes.
Like, obviously, No Way Home is going to have, the old Spider-Man movies from other and then Daredevil's or Netflix's Daredevil, possibly.
But I think those might actually have been,
right.
Those were made to be MCU, but then they weren't. Right. But the one thing I will say is, looking, they have assembled. Which is a making of, like, documentary series on Disney Plus that has the Marvel Studios logo. Okay. So it is MCU related, but it's not. But the behind the scenes, the making of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier 60-minute documentary isn't an MCU thing, but it's made by Marvel Studios, so it has the Marvel Studios.
It's still at least connected to MCU, right? So that's where it's like, if it was the making of Spidey and his amazing friends, then I'd be like, okay, and have the Marvel Studios logo, like, that'd be one thing. I don't know, like I said, it's we're still, like, they're still doing the Disney Plus stuff, and it's still relatively new, so we'll have to see. Anyway, I'm done with talking about the Spider-Man movie, but I'm not. It wasn't my pick, so
sad. Yeah, you can go ahead and talk about your pick.
I know it's me. I was gonna ask Craftsdwarf. Are you going to talk about the other Marvel thing that we finished this week? No. Then I will, because I didn't finish anything else. So we'll keep going right along with the MCU
I have like
discussion.
2 other things I could talk about if I wanted to.
To talk about WandaVision. Because we finished WandaVision this week. And
we're going to spoil the shit out of it. And I will say, if you haven't seen it yet, please watch it, because and you're interested in the MCU stuff and obviously caught up. You should watch it because it's really good, and also you should watch it unspoiled if possible, because it's really, like, interesting and cool.
It gets fucking wild.
Right. So I just want to drop a spoiler warning. So go ahead.
So this is the first thing I'd seen for the watches that I had never. Well, actually, that's not true. This is the first thing I'd seen for the watches that isn't called Thor 1. That I hadn't seen before. And it's fucking great.
Yeah, it's up there as far as MCU stuff goes for me. Like, it's just continuing. It like even the first 4 episodes were interesting. The rest of the show is interesting. Like, it stuck the landing. It was really good. It was really like, it makes Wanda better and more interesting. And not that she wasn't good in the other Marvel movies, but like, you know, it just gives her a lot of focus, and it makes, you know, it just expands on her character. And same with Vision even. And it's just like, it's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I fucking love the way that like the show. I mean, I love the sitcom stuff. I think it's super cool seeing like all these sitcoms, and like, you know, I don't think any of them it's hard to know, even if you haven't seen the shows before, and before at the end of the series where it tells you why it's the specific shows it is, and what shows.
Like, because we did get a couple of them wrong, I think, because I think we're in the first episode we were mentioning like I Love Lucy when really it was the Dick Van Dyke Show.
It was both.
Oh, well,
there were I Love Lucy. There was the suitcase, and there were I Love Lucy tapes in the suitcase as well.
Okay, I didn't see.
So that one was an amalgamation of I Love Lucy and the Dick Van Dyke Show.
So we were only half right. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, you know, outside of that one, you know, we got them all right. We knew it was Bewitched, and then somebody got the 70s show. I don't know what it was. And then we got the 80s show. We got Malcolm in the Middle. We got Modern Family. And so I really liked like the sitcom thing, and I think that it's really cool that even before the whole reason for why it's a sitcom is like shown to you, I think you can tie in the way the sitcoms are being used.
Right. Because it was like moving through the sitcom decades as it was moving through Wanda and Vision's relationship, and then it gets framed back in a really. And I was also really good. Like, it was very much like respectful towards the sitcom entries. Like, it didn't take a cynical escapism thing with it, even like especially the part where like when Sparky died, right, and like Wanda's literally telling like the kids to accept death, and they're like turning it back on to her because she's not accepting the death of Vision. Like, she's not learning the lessons from the sitcoms that she's remembering and from her childhood, right? So like, you know, and I'm glad, I'm just, you know, was glad that it was respectful towards these shows when it very easily didn't, you know, couldn't or wouldn't have been, or might not have been, I guess.
Yeah, it felt very much like the people making WandaVision do legitimately very much enjoy these sitcoms. Yeah, and I thought that made it really, like, sick that, like, you know, they very clearly care about these sitcoms and wanted to capture the tone of the sitcoms, right? Like, the episodes, when it's, and it does really good stuff with the aspect ratio to make everything look different, but when it's inside Wanda's world going as she wants, right, it feels like the sitcom. And captures the tone of that show really well, right?
And so that part, like, I thought, like, the jokes were funny. Like, it was as the sitcom part was enjoyable as a sitcom part, and then which also made it, you know, and even though there's definitely obviously something off from the beginning just by nature of it existing and like what the fuck, and then when it does like break, like the way, like, you know, there's the 3-point camera in the first episode, and there's a specific part where it stops using that, and it's really creepy and unnerving the way that it happens, and it's good, right?
Yeah, I almost would describe the first, like, 2, maybe even 3 episodes where it's, like, before the end of the third, I guess, where it kind of, like, plays its hand and shows you what's going on, and then you have the 4th episode, right, that really is, like, kind of the episode telling you what's happening. I think before all of that, when all you have in the show is just what's going on inside the sitcom, it almost is, like a good horror show, because you know something's wrong just knowing, like, okay, Vision is fucking dead, he shouldn't be here. You also can see these moments where the simulation is breaking, but you don't know what's happening, and I think it works really well for being really unnerving and, like, unsettling.
Yeah, and even, like, the fact that, like, Wanda seems to know what's going on, but Vision doesn't, and Vision is very, like, clearly confused, and you're talking, like, really, he's a fucking AI, right? He's a smart guy. He shouldn't be, like, getting caught off guard like this, and it's, like, it just adds to, you know, so you're seeing Vision in a way that you've never seen him before, right? Where he's, you know, unnerved and trying to figure things out, and it's not going well, and it just, it's really good. And
then what I like, though, actually, is that it goes from the things I feel like the things breaking the illusion stop as the show keeps going and you kind of learn things. It stops going from being like almost unnerving and really unsettling to feeling more like a Marvel series, right? Mm-hmm. Like the first 3 episodes don't feel at all like an MCU movie or anything. But I do think some of the last episodes have that, you know, the Marvel feel, and when the sitcom's breaking, it's breaking to be a Marvel movie or a show, right? In like a really good way. Like I don't even mean that as a negative. If I'm gonna watch an MCU show, I want some MCU shit. You know what I mean? Like I want
sense. Yeah, it would be weird if it almost weird if it didn't. You know? So yeah.
Yeah, and so I thought that was like really good. Yeah, there's just a lot about it that I really really liked. None.
It's good.
I do think
any specific thoughts? None or no?
It's good.
I guess another thing I wanted to say about like the I guess about the sitcom selection that I thought was super good was and like it was the reason like I predicted it would be Modern Family, right, for the 2000s episode. Is literally just because like, you know, I think as like I guess it's fair to say in some ways like as time's gone on, the more popular sitcoms are less about like the family unit, right? And it's okay. Well, it's true that the most popular sitcoms have almost never been that, right? Because like MASH is the highest viewed TV show of all time, right? That's about like, you know, war doctors. But I do think that more and more sitcoms have been going, you know, with like Friends and Seinfeld and you know, like The Office and stuff like that,
from
like
the nuclear family, basically.
Yeah, and so like because of that, like I never thought that those would be the shows. I think I had a different idea for what the '90s show would be instead of Malcolm in the Middle. But that was such a perfect show selection because it's while the fake Quicksilver was there, so it's while like the family unit was at, and it's while Vision was his most distrustful of Wanda. So it's while the family was at its most dysfunctional, so it works the best for it to be Malcolm in the Middle, which is a dysfunctional family that at the end of the day still loves it. So I think like actually even like as you go into it, like the show selection is super good and like says something about what's going on at the time more than just you know, oh, it's a popular sitcom from this decade. It's like, you know, again, like it's the Malcolm in the Middle one because the family's like dysfunctional, right? And the Bewitched one, and sure you could say it's because it's Bewitched, but that's, you know, when they really have to try to hide, or that's like the episode that goes the most in them trying to like hide their powers and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was like good.
Yeah, and like yeah, the sitcom stuff was really cool how it was handled, but then even just like, you know, the stuff with like the last 2 episodes where like we're going through like Wanda's backstory and like where they just, because, you know, framed her and just like you know, how she described it as, you know, she's like trying to stand up in an ocean and she just keeps getting knocked back by waves because her life has been just divine. And like the conversation she had with Vision was like after Pietro died after the events of Age of Ultron, but then like that takes on just another, like it still very much matters, you know, in the context of like WandaVision, because, you know, now she's dealing with Vision's death. So and like that was really good. The villain reveal was good.
Yes, very fucking good.
And yeah, she was like Agatha was really effective as just, you know, taking advantage of Wanda's grief and trying to exploit her, and then, you know, with Wanda having to like, you know, overcome her grief and address like Vision's death and actually, you know, and grow and accept herself better and her powers and God, no, it was just, yeah, the climax was really cool.
The climax super. I love some of the moments in it, like Wanda not even realizing the actual pain she was inflicting on the people there. And the minute she did, she tried to drop it, but then wasn't ready yet to really say goodbye to her family. And then, you know, the moment of her saying goodbye to everyone's so good. Another thing I actually really liked about the show was the way that it brought in very small characters from other, like it brought in Darcy, right? And the FBI agent from Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? It brings in these characters that like are even less of a thing in their movies than like even Ross was in the Hulk, right? To come in and be these still supporting characters, but have a much larger role in the show, right?
Right, and of course, in particular, like Monica, who was, you know, particularly minor in Captain Marvel. But obviously, and part of it was also her origin story because she's going to be in a Layla. That's another thing I'm looking forward to, because like this is the first Disney Plus series and it's literally like building into both the the Marvels. So where because now Monica's gonna is also Captain in the comics. She is Captain Marvel. I forget what her other hero name is, but and then you have Wanda, and apparently Loki will be appearing from the Loki miniseries. Will be appearing in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Right.
To the
and
point that I think,
the ending even hints at Secret Invasion, right? Which we know is coming. With the
right,
scrolls.
well, yes, true. Which I mean, it's more. I don't think it like advances that more compared to
but it hints at it.
Far From Home, where we see Nick Fury out there. But yeah, it's still going towards that, right? So like I don't know. I'm just like really anticipating Doctor Strange. Like I think Doctor Strange is maybe my like second most anticipated Marvel movie after No Way Home, because like obviously No Way Home is like a crossover film with some other Spider-Man movies that I like, but Doctor Strange, I'm like, what the fuck is gonna happen in this movie?
Spider-Man will matter to Doctor Strange because
right, the spell and
because Doctor Strange is in it, and then there's some other things to wonder about, which it's based on like a couple things that I might then there's the question of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, right, which has to be important because it introduces Kang, the Conqueror.
Who could very well be like the villain for the phase or for the foreseeable, because like he's, even if they beat Kang in that movie or whatever, like he's a time traveler with a bunch of different cells,
and he's
basically, so
he's the next character. He's the next character we know of that like in the comics like a Thanos level threat. Like really, like the two next easy ones are like him and Doctor Doom, right? So I think it's really interesting. I like the way the TV shows are doing it. And what I was going to say about them bringing back the smaller characters is just like, I feel like that helps. Because, I mean, they have a reason for their characters would be there, right? It's not just, it's these people that and they're here. It's like, okay, it would make sense why Darcy's here and why, I can't remember the guy who's the FBI. Wu, yeah, why he's here. But it works super well, and it helps the universe feel more like an actual, like, established thing, right? If, like, these very minor characters are showing up across different things as more than just cameos, but as they are living their lives in the universe, I think is really good. So
yeah, and I guess one last observation I had was because with Agatha, when we see her flashback, and she's kind of like hemmed into her role of being a villain because because she broke the rules, so like, and so she's just sort of accepted what she was branded as. Where I think Wanda was told the opposite. Monica told her that she could be a hero. And at the time, Wanda said that, she was gonna fine with being the villain, but at the end of the day, she does have the capacity for a hero. But she's also like insanely strong. Like we were talking, and like like even like when she was like just mind controlling everybody and like controlling reality warping this entire town, we're just like, damn, they even compared it to like Captain Marvel as being like, because they're the two Avengers related characters who got power from an Infinity Stone. But Wanda is only like a baby when it comes to her power, and in the comics, she literally like has reality warped the entire universe multiple times. So it's like, holy fuck.
I think what's crazy about Wanda is just like her powers are at a level that would be like what the main villain that all of the Avengers would team up against.
She's a Thanos level threat, right? Like she's like Agatha just casually throws out like, oh yeah, the Scarlet Witch is even stronger than the Sorcerer Supreme, and I'm like, oh fuck. I'm like, oh, now I know why she's gonna be relevant in the Multiverse of Madness. So it's like, yeah, I don't know, it's
and with the big like multiverse threat at the end, I was thinking just like it's great as an MCU thing. But what I like is that it didn't just feel like, oh, it's like an MCU it's an MCU movie just turned into episodes. It is a TV show, It's like a TV show that fits into the MCU, which is why I'm really excited to see how
like
Falcon and Winter Soldier and
like
Loki
it
do
kind
that.
of has to work out, like just because by virtue of having different episodes focused on different sitcoms, it kind of has to be a series, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. And
I know this isn't I know this isn't the first TV show that was made to be a Marvel MCU TV show, right? There's the Netflix shows, there's Agent Carter, but I think for the ones that are made by Marvel Studios, to go on Disney Plus, to really made as things that immediately matter in the MCU series of films. I think this is a phenomenal start to it,
No, yeah, it's really cool that it started with something that was both like interesting and had something to do, like it stands on its own, I think, like to the degree of, to as a degree as much a degree as a Marvel thing can, like even though it has connections to other stuff, and obviously you have to watch other Marvel movies to fully like get it, but it still like does interesting and cool stuff all on its own, and that's great. Oh, and I guess I was going to bring up Vision, because I don't think we talked very much about him, because obviously there's the lingering thread of the white Vision that's still like out there and has Vision's basically back to life because he got his memories back. So he'll probably come back at some point. But even the sort of constructed Vision was really good too. Which he's just like he's just a good cool guy, and he's just doing his best, and he's a nice dude, and I don't know, Vision's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think I have much more to say about Marvel Vision, WandaVision.
I really like the conversation Vision has with the fake Vision.
Yes, which one?
The one that they have about the boat.
The
right?
ship of Theseus problem.
Yeah.
That was interesting, having the ship of Theseus problem discussed by and no, in general, like, and the way that like goes where I'm here to kill Vision, but Vision's like, but I'm not Vision, and he's like, elaborate. Like,
yeah, and then like they kind of reach the point at the end, and then I love that we know that this white Vision has Vision's memories because he gets them back, right? So then now that makes me wonder, will Vision actually show up? Like, even if it's not the Vision that Wanda made, and he doesn't have the Mind Stone, could he still be the Vision that Wanda?
Part of me would think so, but there's also the fact that he just kind of like fucked off and didn't like meet.
Well,
Wanda
he doesn't stay
again.
fucked
Right.
off.
Yeah, I know.
Like he'll come back, which is really interesting.
In the context of WandaVision, he fucked off. Like he just flew out, and that's the last we saw of him, right? Like,
I think the one other thing is I love the conversation he has with Wanda, where Vision tells her, at first I was a driver, and then I was an AI, and then I was a superhero. Now I'm something you created. What will I be next? Is actually such a pog fucking line. I can't get over it. It's so good, actually.
No, yeah, it was. It's really cool stuff. Good show. So, Wanda's not the only magical girl in town. I watched Masakai Precure. And it was good. Like, so Masakai Precure, like, this was actually the first Precure series I watched back when it first ended. I watched 2 episodes and was like, I don't like this, and I dropped it. And I also, like, it's kind of, it's not well liked in the Precure fan base, because it's, like, generally seen as, like, one of the worst entries. So I can safely say that the Precure fan base doesn't deserve human rights. Well, because not only is it not my least favorite entry, I quite liked it. I think the 2 areas that I agree, like, definitely aren't as good as other Precure seasons are, like, visually, like, the production isn't amazing. Like, there's not very many, like, well animated or directed episodes as, other Precure seasons can have, like, and it varies from season to season in general, but, and that's not a particular big problem for me. The antagonists were also not very standout, but, I guess, like, what, I did like about the show is, like, the side cast in general is good. I really like the main characters. They were really fun, and I like them. And, Mirai is cute. She's the main character. She's just, she's a archetype that I'm familiar with, where she's just dumb, reckless, that kind of character. And she doesn't stand out that much on her own, but, she does work really well with the other characters. The Rico, she's, like, pretentious. And they're all baby idiots, and so they grow up over the course of the show, and that's nice. I really like Hanami. She's the mid-season Precure character. I came to really appreciate her voice actress, who I've been familiar with, Jaime Saori, who are some other characters she voiced. Yukino in Origairu. I can think of some others, but Maria in fucking Otome Game. So, and, like, well, because the character starts out as a literal baby who the others raise to, being, their age. And, so, like, she has a higher pitched voice when she's younger, but then her voice gets a little bit deeper when she's older, but she'll still sometimes, like, let out, like, higher pitched, like, squeals that are really cute. And also at the end of the show, she becomes a god. And, in the one episode that is really, like, great visually, in the show, I would say, Which is really funny how it's handled, because that's like the big climactic episode where they defeat the final boss. So she becomes a giant like god who's a reincarnation of the actual god who helped save the magic and mundane worlds before they were split. And then it's really funny because she just comes back in the last episode and they're like, oh, where were you? And she was like, oh, yeah, I was in a space beyond space praying for the happiness of everyone. And they're like, neat. And I'm like, wow, that was really existential. They just like kind of brushed by it. It's funny. But I don't know. I had a lot of fun with Mouse Guy Precure. It's good. I liked it. That's it.
It is so funny the differences between us talking about something that everyone's seen and us talking about something only one person has. We're like, when everyone's seen it, we'll go on and we'll talk about it and have a whole conversation. And every time, right? It's not even just when it's, you, right? Because it happens with me sometimes.
Or none. Yeah,
it
happens. I think it also depends on, like, how much can we add to the conversation? Like, if you play the Guardians game, I haven't touched it. I've barely seen it in gameplay, but I could at least ask questions because I know about the Guardians. I know about the characters. You haven't seen more than a couple episodes of Precure season. Like, what, what are you going to ask? What questions are you going to, like, how would you add to the conversation, right?
Hey, which girl's the hottest? That's your question from me.
They are middle schoolers.
All of them.
If it was a different Precure season, I'd maybe have an answer for you, but in this case, I don't think any of them are in particular hot. So, But and I guess to add on to what Vindy's point is next week, because I was gonna talk about Star Fox, because I have finished both Adventures and Assault. But by next week I'll have finished Star Fox Zero, so I was just gonna wait and talk about all three in the same week. So I decided to talk about Precure instead.
If we're giving hints for what we're talking about, I'm talking about Baki next week because I'll be done with part 3. So
how far into part 4 will you be?
Who knows? But part 3 is either way. Part 3 is like the part 3 like kind of bookends like a whole thing. I already know because of what it's leading to. So part 3 will be a good point to like stop and talk about everything up till then.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll talk about Baki next week. So.
But yeah, the main reason I brought it up is because like it's a video game and it's also a Nintendo video game, so I feel like even if like I don't know which Star Fox games you guys have played, but you guys might be able to like know some things anyway, or talk about some certain aspects just because by nature of like I was just adding on to my point about Precure and how much you guys can add to the conversation. But anyway, I'm ready to end it off unless none wants to share something he might talk about next week. But
hopefully by the end of next week, I talk about a manga that's a little psycho. And a character who's a little bit of a, a little mob, a little bit of
100.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.
Adios, muchachos.
Happy.